Heyo, Playman here. Alright, so we're doing Season 2, Episode 1 of Wheel of Time, which is available on Amazon. For those of you who don't know, I did the whole season, and I am doing episode by episode because it is so objectively bad that I can't watch 5 minutes of the show without being annoyed. So yeah, I wrote a whole thing, and then I had to edit it down because... it's just better if I just tell you as opposed to reading from like some prompter thing that I wrote, what have you. Anyhow, so I'm just gonna glance at my notes and then tell you. I'm gonna try and make this as quick and succinct as possible so we don't have to delve too much on this. I hate this so much. I can't wait to talk about something like The Penguin, which is a great show. All right, love you. Here we go. All right, Season 2, Episode 1 of Wheel of Time. All right, we're back, and apparently we're back in Aes Sedai land. Yay, okay. Lots of BS there. First thing I want to talk about is the silliness in like the first episode. Before we actually go to Aes Sedai land, the first part of the episode, there's this little girl who sneaks past into this room, which is in the middle of the forest, randomly. So she sneaks into this big door. I don't know how she's even able to open it. She's like 5, 6. And then she's like crawling on hands and knees under this table where there's all these like objectively evil people. You get a person who looks like an Aes Sedai because she's got the over ridiculous Aes Sedai ring. You have a person who looks like a White Cloak because the White Cloaks have their weird finger rings. Yada, yada, yada. And then eventually she gets snapped up by the evil villain from the last show, and he brings her outside, and there's some Trollocs that want to eat her, and he's like, no, let's pet the Trollocs. The whole thing is ridiculous, and here's why. Simply put, A, why is there no guards? How did this girl get past the Trollocs in the first place? And how did she sneak into this room? And then on top of that, it's like, okay, I love that this scene happened, but it didn't give us any information. It didn't do anything at all. Like, it was a totally... it was literally a scene from the book, and then we're like, how do we show this? Oh, we're going to have a little kid go in there, and I'm like, just show us the scene. Just show us the scene of what happened. Like, it's this evil guy talking to his evil minions in an evil way. Like, that's all. You can do other things. You don't even have to show that. There doesn't have to be this fly on the wall, but where the fly is going to be a little girl. So I don't know why they're doing this complicated thing. Anyways, moving on. I thought it was BS and lame and whatever. Nynaeve and Egwene are in Tar Valon. Weirdly, not with Moraine. That we'll talk about later. How they're dealing with Nynaeve and Egwene is stupid because they have them as like beginners. And I'm like, because they're so powerful, they went from being a beginner to an intermediate, which is called accepted, really quickly. So they're trying to fast forward things in this show. They should just have them be accepted. But having them be this, then they do all this weird stuff where they're punishing Nynaeve because she can't really use her magic, even though later they talk about how she's super powerful. She's 100 times more powerful than anybody else. And I'm like, for starters, she's not 100 times more powerful. She's very powerful. I don't even think she's the most powerful in the books. She's like right up there, or she might be a little bit above Egwene, but like not much. Like, she's a little bit, but not that much. But they've totally cheated and lied and all this stuff, and it's ridiculous. And they're basically... there's this weird, like, wall that they're breaking where they're kind of treating them like garbage. And in the books, it happens, but it's done in this, like, way where you can kind of understand the logic. In this case, it just seems like bullying and slavery. And it's weird, and I don't know why they're doing it, and it just seems lazy. It's just lazy writing. All right, there's this weird thing where they're like walking around, and Tar Valon has all these like stone pillars, like Greek pillars, right? And they have a room of Greek pillars, which doesn't make any sense, and it's like super high, like 5, 6, 7 flights up, and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And then they have a fight pit. They put sand in the middle of it, and I'm just like, why? What? Why? Why are you? Oh, I don't know who the art director is on it. It just is annoying because you look at the outside and you're like, that's a castle. Like Tarvalon, just a castle on an island. Like, all right, cool. And then they show the inside, and you're like, where is that in the castle? That doesn't make any sense. And it's weird. And it's bad art direction. It's bad aesthetic design. It doesn't make any sense. If you're going to have fighting pits, like where the warders are practicing, it would be outside. Or some big, like stable type thing. Like a big thing. It doesn't have to be, like 15 feet across. You're not going to practice fighting in your dining room. That doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. Later on, they do this thing, but I'll talk about it right now because we're talking about it. There's a scene where Nynaeve is practice fighting with 2 different warders, which for anybody who practices anything, any martial art whatsoever, like when you're up to 2 people, that means you're like really skilled, even if it's practice fighting. So she's fighting 2 as if she's super skilled, and I'm like, no, she's like never held a sword in her life until like yesterday. So no, that's not realistic and totally ridiculous. And they're like, you could be a female warder. And it's like, no, that's not a thing that really happens. It happened like one time, like many hundreds of years ago. And she wouldn't be because she has magical abilities. So what? And then they're like, oh yeah, this dude, I love this other warder dude. Like, so I'm in love with him, and then he's in love with the Aes Sedai. So I followed him, inferring this like weird 3-way that I didn't want to hear. There's so much like weird innuendo or even like overt, a little sex scene here that was so unnecessary and so weird. It was wonderful reading the books because there was almost implications, but it was like a whisper. You'd have to really read between the lines to induce, oh, they're having sex with each other. And sometimes it was less that, but like, oh, it's a green. She's got 4 warders. But it was never like, oh, she's fucking all of them. So to me, it's so weird that the show is like bringing this up. And I'm like, look, if you're going to do it. Then just show it. But I think they realize like, oh, but if we do that, then the Aes Sedai are going to get kind of weird. And I'm like, yeah, you're doing that already. You failed already. Good job. Bravo. You suck. Okay. Yeah, they're treating Egwene and Nynaeve like bullies. They're treating them like they are bullies and they're slaves, which is like, it's part of it, but not quite. Okay, now we get into Perrin, right? Hey, he's still around. He, with a group of people, they're hunting the Horn of Valyr, which at this point is the most important artifact, full stop. And they're a day behind this crew of dark friends and the other guy from the first show, and they're hunting him down, and it's like, okay, cool. But they don't seem like they're in a hurry at all. Like, they don't make it seem like this is the most important thing I can be doing with my time. They're like, yeah, well, I think the sun will go down in about an hour, so let's just set up camp. Yeah? Okay. Sun's out, been out for a little bit of an hour, so maybe we should break up camp and, whatever. And then they also don't explain how they're searching these people. Like, you can follow the trail, which makes sense, right? But they don't talk about that. And they don't talk about how they have this guy who's like a sniffer, and what he sniffs is violence. So he's following the violence that these dark friends are, doing, and then it leaves a certain sense for this guy. They don't explain that at all. It's like just whoop, whoop, whatever. Maybe they explained it in the last show. I don't remember. But they don't remind you. And then they're like leaning into Perrin and his abilities. But his abilities are sensing what wolves are sensing. So the wolves would have to be close enough to sense that. And instead, they're making it seem as if like Perrin can relive instances. And I'm like, that's not his power. It's not his ability. Why? And all it does is it totally gets rid of this other character and just puts it all on Perrin. And it's like, that's not what happened, and I don't know why you're doing it, other than you wanted to save money, I guess? But it's like, well, then don't have the other person. Just have Perrin's powers come in. It's stupid, weird, I don't get it. I realize that they're probably doing like 1 to 10% of the actual books. Sorry about the bumps. So meaning like the books have all this stuff, And actually what they did is they took about 10% of the books and they changed the other 90%. And I feel like I'm being generous, but that's kind of what it's coming across. It's what my realization is, that they don't know what they're doing. They're changing all this stuff, and it's very frustrating. Anyways, there's this weird thing where Lan, he's like, in the books, he's like super stoic, right? Very man of few words, high action, just total alpha male Chad. I don't know if you guys have seen, oh gosh, I can't wait until I get into the putting things on your screen for you. But like, there's this alpha dude guy with this amazing chin, like total butt chin, and he's just ripped and he's super yoked. And I'm like, that's who Lan is. I mean, not literally like, oh, whatever. And I always think of Lan as like a white guy, but whatever. They've made him Asian. I don't really care. It's fine. But like, Lan is this guy who's just cut from granite, unbreakable, unshakable. Since he was a child, he was sworn an oath in his cradle, holding the sword. And then for years and years, he lived in the most rugged of environments with the most rugged of guys for pretty much his entire life. He's a tough hombre. He is tough. Like, no version of, I can't think of Lewis and Clark. Think of the most tough explorer type people in the world, and then you give them sword skills and all this other stuff and this honed like destiny. That's what Lan is. And what they're doing is making him this like weird simp for Moraine. And I'm like, he's honor bound and duty bound to protect Moraine. It doesn't make him a simp. He's duty bound to do it. It's a little different, and they have friction in the book, and that's fine. What they're doing here is making him like a simp who like serves her dinner and then is annoyed because she's not talking to him. And I'm like, for starters, she wouldn't be doing this in the first place. I don't like that they're doing this. It's super weird because it does come up later in the books, but not in this way. It's so weird. I don't know why. And then it's like, oh, going to Moraine. Oh, she doesn't have her powers, which I didn't agree with in the end of this, whatever. And then, oh, okay, cool. So she doesn't have her powers, so she can't do anything. And she's meeting with people. She meets with this guy named Bail Doman, who's in the series, in the book series, in a different part of the world at this point, not showing up and like trading in things with Moraine. Frankly, weirdly enough, the conversation with Bail Doman, who's a head of a ship and yada, 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 has a great little character arc throughout the whole series. He's a good character. Him and the conversation with him and Moraine and their bartering for these things, that was like the most Aes Sedai thing, the most realistic thing in the series so far. I mean, episode 1. But I was like, yeah, no, that makes it. I applaud. That's great. Good job, guys. That didn't happen, but could have happened. And if it did happen, it would have happened the way it happened. So bravo. That's my favorite part of the show. Moving on. All right. I think I told you about the female warders and the Nynaeve, and like, it's just like, no, Nynaeve wouldn't be a female warder. Anyways, then there's this weird thing where the Red Aes Sedai is meeting up with Nynaeve, and she not only lies to Nynaeve, and it could be like, oh, she's misleading because the Aes Sedai are known for like snaky versions of conversation, but it seemed to me like she lied, which is totally, and when I say against the Aes Sedai code, I mean, they are not able to do it. So if an Aes Sedai lies to you, then she's a black Aes Sedai, meaning she broke her magically binding code to be with the Dark One, which they don't explain any of this stuff. They just like, oh yeah, things. And I'm like, okay, I guess, okay, it's just weird. And then she like pushes Nynaeve up against a wall with magic, which again, Aes Sedai are not allowed to use magic that harms someone, harming Nynaeve, unless they've broken their permanent code. So, sorry, code is oath. They hold an oath rod using magic. It basically makes it impossible for them to hurt someone unless they're a dark friend or a Trolloc or something like that, which is a dark friend, or lie. And then there's like one other one I can't remember. So it's like like they're literally not able to at all. Like, there's this beautiful moment in the books where an Aes Sedai who is of the black basically goes up and tells someone, like, that cup is purple and it's a blue cup or a red cup or whatever. Clearly illustrating that she can lie, which is kind of a what moment in the books. And so that's fine. It's weird because I don't feel like they built enough and they explain enough. I don't know why they're trying to do like 2 books in one series and just do a bad job. Like, they're spending so much time on things that are nonsensical and don't make sense when you have the material right there. You have a book, you're doing 8 episodes, 10 episodes, just do that. But they're doing weird stuff. I don't like it. The whole fight, the whole conversation with Nynaeve and this Red, who's a Bitch, it does like, oh my God, it doesn't make any sense. It's so weird. And it's so overtly bad writing. Whatever. There's this weird thing that I noticed. So aside from Perrin and he's traveling and they don't seem like they're in a hurry, then they come across some humans, and that's when he has this thing. And I'm thinking to myself, like, if they're following Dark Friends and the Dark Friends have Trollocs with them, presumably they would, there will be no humans left. They'd be in cookpots and eaten. So it's kind of weird to me, but I'm kind of willing to, like, okay. But they don't explain it. So it's annoying to me because, like, it's not explained. And I don't understand why, other than bad writing. So, whatever. The other thing, I don't know if I explained it already. Sorry. It's been a long 60 minutes. But, like, Perrin is writing letters to Nynaeve and Egwene. And mind you, he's on the road chasing after the Horn of Valyr. And then somehow Nynaeve and Egwene in Tar Valon are able to get his letter. And I'm thinking, how does this work? Do they have Pigeon Express? Do they have, like, cannons that they shoot the mail over? Like, what? That doesn't make any sense. I'm not saying he didn't write notes and can't write notes and things, but they wouldn't be able to read it. So it's weird and, like, unnecessary, and they don't even explain it. And it's just weird. All right. Last thing. Sorry, I'm trying to power through this, but it's so many annoying things. The final fight scene. So Moiraine decides, Lan decides to be less stoic and like, you know what? I'm just going to trust Moiraine knows what she's doing. I'll bring her food. I was being mean by not bringing her food and insisting she come down for dinner. Okay, stupid, whatever. Then he brings up the food. Moraine's not there. And Moiraine decides, as an Aes Sedai who can't touch her power, that she's like, look, I have this thing that I got from Bael Doman. I have this poem, so I don't know what it means. We don't know what it means, but I'm going to just run away. Without my warder to protect me, without my powers to protect me, I'm just going to run away and go do what she's got to do by herself. Which is like, no, that's a dumb idea. What the heck is wrong with you? But she decides to do that. And what kills me is she gets like a block. Like a city block. Almost within shouting distance of the house. And then there's a Fade, which is like the scary bad guy. They're horrible. Like in the books, a Fade can easily kill 20, 30 fighting men. Like it would take that many fighting men who really are good because they scare you when they look upon you. They invoke fear. They're extremely fast, like Quicksilver. And they have a blade that if it slices you and you don't get healed by an Aes Sedai, you're dead. Like dead. Even just one little slice, you're dead. So they're evil. They're really bad. And like they turn sideways and they turn invisible, basically. They're really bad news. So she runs across one of them in the road, which is like, oh, I'm sorry, I was riding my horse and I just decided not to look up from the mane until you were right there. Hi, Mr. Fade. And it swipes its sword at her and she dodges back. Somehow it doesn't slice the sword in half or whatever. It's weird. And then she like hides in some piles of hay, which is like, okay, and some rocks that were nearby. And she pulls out a knife, because of course she has a knife. And somehow the Fade's chasing after her, trying to find her, and she gets the surprise on it and stabs it in the head. Which I'm like, I mean, on a scale of 1 to 100, there is a 1% chance of that happening. But I guess so. But then there's another Fade. And she's like, I can't fight that. And just as she gets sliced, which means she's dead. And then all of a sudden, Lan just shows up. Because again, we're not far away. We're almost within shouting distance of the house. And even though he's not connected to her because she's not connected to the power, so she doesn't know where she is, where he is, they're not connected in that way. He just showed up because, reasons. And then he kills a Fade, but has a much harder time. This trained fighter who has killed hundreds of Fades, if not more, in his life, and has done nothing but fighting this enemy the last 20 odd years, has a much harder time succeeding than she does. But he does, but he gets wounded and he's like, oh, I can't really do it. And there's more Fades and more Trollocs, again, from where? I have no idea. It's ridiculous. And then the other Aes Sedai that they were like hanging out with use their weird magical Aes Sedai powers that are so ridiculous and overpowered, like they didn't read the books and understand the magical system. And it's like, well, just magically, we can just do all this stuff. And then that's it. And I'm just like, oh okay. Okay. I hate this show. I love you. I hate this show. Plaidman out. Talk to you later. Bye.